When I talk about disability access online, I often get, especially from people who are non disabled, well, everything has to be accessible. It's the law. ADA says so. And sort of, yes, you're right. But a few things. The ADA is not perfect, the ADA lacks teeth. And so, oftentimes, these places that are doing kind of accessibility fails. Not much really, unfortunately, comes of it unless somebody has the legal means to do so. I've collected a selection of photos from myself and from the internet. We're going to talk about the accessibility fails and things that I see and ways that places can be more accessible. This is a photo I found on the internet, but this is something I see all too often, honestly, is you will have a obvious wheelchair ramp, and then in the middle will be something like a planter or a tree, so it's not really accessible to move through. Also, if you've ever been in a wheelchair, that's going to be a rough ride. A lot of people don't consider the materials and the accessibility, but I want to say things like brick or cobblestone are horrid. There's a few design fails here. Can you pick them out? Obviously, there's the barrier in the middle of the crosswalk, but there's also no bumps right there before that dip, and so somebody who is perhaps using a cane in cases of people with like low vision, I think this also is a major accessibility fail beyond just wheelchair users. If you're a mom, you're just gonna like lug it over the top or like go around in your like wheelchair buggy. Like what's the plan? This is awful. I see this all too often too. It's when a place will use the accessible parking as, or like the hatched spots in the parking as some type of storage or extra place to like sell things outside. I've seen this at a variety of different businesses, including garden centers. I've seen it done at like a Trader Joe's before. And obviously this isn't okay. There's very few accessible spots in an entire lot. And it looks like they just took it all up to sell flowers. Flowers were more important than a person who is disabled trying to access things that day. This is often a problem I see or have had issues with myself in the past, but these hatched lines here are designed so that somebody with a ramp can go fully around, or somebody in a wheelchair can have full ability to load in and out of their car. And when people park over the hatched lines, this becomes an accessibility nightmare. It's difficult to repark. Really, you're at the mercy of hopefully whoever is there helping you, or hopefully that person comes and moves their car. I've even seen people like in smaller cars. Again, I drive a Fiat. I could definitely fit, but I've seen people in smaller cars also just park inside of the hatch lines, which is absolutely wild. I've already drug this place to pieces, but this is Evermore Park, and this is a photo I took. When I called the facility, they swore to me up and down that Evermore was incredibly accessible. I was going to be able to do all of the activities and go through all the mazes and see everything. Well, that just simply isn't true. As you can see, I can't even make it any closer to the statue or anything that's going on over here because of the dip in the sidewalk, as well as the large and poorly leveled cobblestone. Again, cobblestone at the scene of the crime. Again, it's not entirely accessible if everybody is not able to access everything. And really, at this place, I was unable to access most things. This is my old college, Hello Weber State. I tried to contact them several times when I was a student there. I honestly really enjoyed my time at Weber. If I could, I would go back. But things just happened, you know what I mean? But this is often an issue I'd run into. I would use the public transit system, and so I'd have a little bit of a go. And as you can see here, there'd be a walkway up until the sidewalk. The sidewalk is completely covered in snow. So pedestrians maybe can stomp over the top of it, but people in wheelchairs, people using things like canes, really aren't going to have that ability, and we're going to have to walk inside of the road. This is my delightful old apartment complex. This looks really silly, and it kind of was that day. This is before I was a little bit more wheelchair reliant, and so we were simply just trying to access the facilities and go and enjoy the hot tub, which was open year round. This apartment complex would let just feet of snow pile up. There's a sidewalk under there, there's grass under there, and they would just leave it indefinitely. At the same apartment complex, too, they would also have Food Truck Friday, and Food Truck Friday just parked in the accessible spots near the office, and that was like 2 spots in the entire lot, unless you happened to be one of the lucky people with the ADA spots. For the ADA rooms. If not, you simply did not get an accessible spot or an accessible parking spot. Instead, they would use it again to have food trucks. So I hope you want a Cubano sandwich, but you're not going to be able to park in your parking spot, girlies. I also keep seeing this image, and I'll see this image circulate a lot, being like, this is so cool, like this is amazing, but you can kind of see in all of these photos what a mess. I want you to imagine if you were self-propelling a wheelchair up that, how much effort that would really consume. This is, it's interesting. I can appreciate that it's built into the space already. I think a lot of, especially I just went to the courthouse because I had jury duty, boo. But the entrance for the wheelchair ramp was all the way around the building. They didn't even have it in the front, with all the other steps. You had to go around this weird way. And so this is great that it's front and center, but I just think people don't realize, I want whoever designs these to sit in a wheelchair and go from the bottom all the way to the top and let me know how they're feeling. They're probably not going to be feeling great, and I want them to have to do it. Let's say this is in a college. I want you to do it again, and I want you to do it again, and see how many times that you can do it, because it's a mess. I should start taking pictures when I'm out and about, but other examples of accessibility fails that I see often, there's actually a limit on how heavy a door can be, and sometimes doors, for the bathrooms, I don't know how we haven't hit a point where accessible stalls don't have automatic doors and things like that, but they simply don't, and sometimes the doors are detrimental. They're so heavy that it's so hard to get the leverage to move them, especially inside of a wheelchair. The local movie theater doesn't have accessible doors, so every single time that I have to go to, not have to, if I want to go to a movie and I want to go by myself, or I don't want to go with my spouse, I still have to have my spouse walk me up to the door and open the door because it is so heavy that I cannot get inside of it. Another accessibility fail I run into often is that the accessible stalls are out of order or closed, and that lasts for ever in an indefinite period of time. I've been to places where it's weeks, months that those bathrooms are out of order. And then I also noticed, so inside of accessible restrooms, there's typically a sink, and that's there because typically the other sinks are difficult not to get water all over yourself, but it's an easy way. There's room to pull in, but 95% of the time I notice they don't stock it with soap and they don't stock it with paper towels, and so you have to go out, and I'm balancing everything, trying to do it while it's so busy in the bathroom. And so that's an accessibility fail I experience all the time. A lot of places don't know that there's an aisle width requirement, and I have I have a smaller wheelchair and I still struggle to go through some spaces. Also, living in Florida, I visit beach towns fairly often, and I don't know why this is the thing. This might be easier if you were a manual user, but alas, I am not. But basically, a lot of these little beach shops, I noticed they have just one tiny step that's this big, and I can't get my wheelchair over it. There's no way that I could do a wheelie. I would have to completely get out of my wheelchair and have somebody help me lift my wheelchair into the store, which, come on, that's not okay. And so I just don't go to those places. Speaking of bathrooms too, not all accessible restrooms, like I said, are created equal. Sometimes the bar placement is rather strange. They won't have any in the back, and they'll only have some, or they won't have any in the side, and they'll only have bars in the back. So when you're sitting down, that might help, but that's kind of a strange angle to not have something else. And I don't know, unless you're sitting like Butters in the bathroom, how does that work? I see that all the time too. I'm I really want you guys to think about how a human being would use this restroom. If the human being is not dislocating both of their shoulders and lowering themselves onto the latrine, then maybe different design idea, So now to wrap up the video, I am curious, what are some design fails that you have seen recently?